I'm more upset with Greg Biffle. He's the most unprofessional little scaredy cat I've ever seen in my life. He wouldn't even fight me like a man after. He needs a freaking whooping. I'm going to give it to him.
And welcome to the Intentional Wreck Podcast. Podcast made by race fans for race fans, from the casuals to the lifelong gearheads. My name is Jeff, and I'm here with my fellow hosts Corey and Finn, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle @intwreckpod. That's @INTWRECKPOD. Find us, follow us, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Also, big shout out to the 4 Laps Down Facebook community for having us and hosting us. We had an interesting weekend. Corey and I made a couple of trips up to Dover.
Oh, so you guys didn't cuddle in the truck?
We did not. No, there was no truck cuddling action.
Bro, me and Jeff are both 6'1" and approximately 285 to 300 pounds.
That's why
drive Corollas.
That's why you like Ford F-150s, baby. It's for when you can cuddle when Dover gets rained out every fucking spring. So going forward,
it was a disaster.
My first question to you: I've heard about the disaster, and I'll let you hop into the disaster, but all encompassing of everything, including the pretty fantastic race that occurred. Next year, are you going back? And next year, are you just going to wait till Monday to go?
So I think the answer to, before we go into all of the nonsense and just insane shit show that took place, the move is this with Dover. This is my PSA to you, everyone out there who might go to Dover. Do not buy your tickets until you arrive in Dover. And here's why. Because as soon as I bought the tickets ahead of time, I felt pressure to go, right? The pressure to go, I could have watched this race at home and it would have been just fine with me. However, I enjoy going to races live, and I got the tickets probably about 2 weeks before the race. In retrospect, that was a huge mistake. I should have waited until we were there and we knew the race was happening and we knew the weather would be good until buying them. Because frankly, I don't know about you, Jeff, but if we didn't have tickets ahead of time, I probably wouldn't have gone back on Monday.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. That created this pressure for us to go back, which the race was amazing. It was a really, really good time, but man, what a disaster of just logistical nightmare, dude.
So did you guys tailgate and didn't even go into the track on Sunday? You guys had heard that it got canceled before you got up there? Is that how that worked?
Let me set the scene for you, bud.
You take this.
Jeff, we'll go with that.
How about this, Jeff? You take Sunday and I'll take Monday. How about that?
Sure. We'll roll with that. So Sunday, a matter of fact, let's start it on Saturday. Saturday, the entire day, I'm glued to the Dover weather forecast and Bob Pockrass's Twitter account and a couple of other, notable NASCAR figures, just kind of like waiting, because while checking said Dover forecast, all it said was, and at no point did this waver, 85+% chance of rain from 5 a.m. through the nighttime on Sunday in Dover. This did not waver in any way to make you think that there was going to be any less rain. In fact, by the time it was about midnight on Saturday, it was over 90%. And there were multiple times when you'd see certain hours on the hourly forecast that were at 100% chance of rain. As in, there was absolutely no doubt that it was just going to be downpours all day. So with that information, Corey and I are just, texting back and forth and like, what are we going to do? Like, are we still going to go? And during that whole time, we're glued to the other accounts trying to go, like, they've got to call this, right? Like, they've got to call this to Monday. This is also the same thing that happened last year.
Right.
Like, they've got to just make a call. Nothing. No call. So we're like, okay, I guess we're doing this. So bright and early Sunday morning, Corey and I hop in the car and drive 2 hours, 90+ miles from Northern Virginia to Dover. We, on the way, on multiple occasions said, how this is going to go, right? We're going to get there. We're going to prop up the tailgate gear. I'm going to fire up this charcoal and get ready to grill some tasty food and crack open a cold beer. And by the time that the fire hits the coals, they're going to make the call on this race. And that was the prediction. And I shit you not. We got there, parked, set up the tailgate gear. I got my chimney ready to roll. I lit the coals. And by the time that the first layer on the bottom of the chimney started to turn red, a guy comes walking by our tailgate and said, "Hey guys, I don't know if you'd heard. They just made the call. They're pushing this to noon on Monday."
It was 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes after the coal. After Jeff lights the
easily.
coals, 5 minutes later they call the race.
Yes. And he comes over and makes that. And I had my Big Lebowski, I'm finishing my coffee moment where I said, well, I'm not wasting this charcoal. Let's have a couple of burgers and a beer while we're here anyway.
Right.
And after this, we can go to the casino. So
And we
that's exactly what we did. Like I cooked us up a couple of burgers. We had some lunch, had a couple of beverages, and then took the short little trip over to Bally's and hung out at the sports book for a little bit and made an afternoon out of it, and then drove our asses home to be ready to be back there again, less than 24 hours later. And I will pass the rest of this on to Corey.
So Monday, Jeff and I had made the determination when we decided that we were driving up Sunday, when we thought there probably wouldn't be a race. I believe we had come to an agreement that no matter what happens, we are seeing every single lap of this race, right? I mean, that's kind of where my head was at, right? So Monday morning, both of us had to take off work, right? So we get up Monday morning again. We drive the little bit over 2 hours back to Dover. Pardon me. And we arrive at we get up there. There's a Home Depot right by the track. We popped in the Home Depot parking lot real quick to kind of just take stock where we were at. There's cars everywhere. Now, mind you, the race is scheduled for green flag at 12:10, right? Call at noon, green flag 12:10. We got to Dover. I think we left my brother's house about like 8:30. We got to Dover about like 10:30.
Okay.
And there's cars everywhere. And it is, I mean, Finn, when I tell you that the traffic getting in was not moving, it was like molasses. The
Parking lot
lines
on Route 13.
It was a disaster trying to get into the parking lot. We're sitting in traffic. We finally get into the parking lot. We get parked, whatever. It's probably, I mean, no bullshit. It takes us 45 minutes to an hour to get into the parking lot. So now it's 11:30-ish with a 12 o'clock call and a 12:10 race. We walk up to the track to try to go in. They had cut the staff in half because it was a Monday race. They had closed half of the gates to get into the track because it was a Monday race. When I tell you that every single line to get through every single gate had at least 1,000 people in it, it's zero exaggeration. Jeff, back me on this. It was insane, Finn. It was like you would walk for 5 minutes and the line was still going for every single gate. And then they have, it's 11:40, right? Ish. The lines are not moving for a 12 o'clock call. They're not moving at all. They have the effing audacity to be standing there inside the fences telling people that they can't bring their hard coolers in, right? They're still doing security checks, all this stuff. We're waiting. So we're outside the track when the call is made. We're outside the track when the green flag drops because we couldn't get in because the lines were so insanely long. We get probably 12:15, 12:20. Jeff and I were in the track. We got into the track at about like lap 18. So we were in by the time that the
competition caution
took place. But the linchpin, the final kicker of the whole shit is that at the very end, once the people that were working realized what a disaster that they had on their hands logistically, Finn, I'm not joking. They were just letting people just go through. Like at no stopping, no checking bags, no checking tickets, nothing. It was just a wall of people going through.
We had that at Nats Park when I took Lihua. She had a bag and apparently they have issues with bags, certain sizes of bags in Nats Park, and they're pretty strict on it. And they were doing all this checking, and I'm sitting there like we were already late, and I remember being mad at her because I was like, we're already late, and if I miss an Acuna home run, I'm gonna be pissed because I've never seen him hit one, and he hit a leadoff home run. So we did see that, but I almost missed it. I was mad at her, but we carried him. But yeah, it hit a point where the game, the anthem had just finished.
Yeah.
And it was like, yo, game starting. And literally, they're like, now they did have the tickets because you have to scan tickets at Nats Park to get in. So like you couldn't get in without a ticket. But like security checkpoint, they turned all of the metal detectors off.
Yes.
And let them go. And you know
People
what?
were just
While I
running through.
get it, and while most fans would be like, woo, 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 let's not
Right.
forget, I was at that game, at the
When
Padres
when
game,
shots were fired.
where there was the shots right outside their base. So like for me, nothing is worth the security concern. So you think about these NASCAR
Well,
drivers.
and I'm with you on that, but
Right.
like you double that with the fact that like you've already made us late.
Correct.
Like if you're gonna do that half an hour ago.
Right. Don't do
So
that
we can
now.
at least get in.
Yeah,
And
do that
then we
now.
get in, and I promise you, dude, there was no one in there checking where people were. Like there was no one checking tickets at all inside the section that we
I've never
sat
seen.
in
No,
when-
they didn't do it in
Bruh.
Richmond. There's no
When
ticket
I-
checking.
they're not checking at all. When I bought those tickets, there was mad tickets available in the section that I was in, and that shit was packed.
Yeah.
And like all the turn 1 and turn 3 bleachers were like empty. And then the whole front stretch section was packed.
Yeah. Everybody just
It
went
was
to the
a-
front stretch. That's what happened.
Yeah, for sure. It
Another
was a
thing too-
fantastic race. The
Right.
race was awesome. The product on the track was awesome.
Right.
Dover Speedway, you failed. Period. Full stop. It was a disaster. Do better, or I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
They mentioned it on the radio, like why I was like like the broadcast. They had like Dover's like manager, or like the general manager of the track, like doing an interview, and they were talking about it, but in a very like kind of bubbly way when they were saying like, oh, we had people, you know, this person was out there, and they were naming names that were like executives at the track, and they were like, oh yeah, we saw this person out there scanning tickets, and someone was, and the guy made the comment that it was like, oh yeah, he had to be the highest paid ticket taker in the history of the track, like, and this was at the
Not funny.
exact same time this was happening on the radio. Like, full disclosure, I was walking out of the bathroom at the time, and I went to go and wash my hands, and I look over to go dry, and I go to the paper towel station. It was right after one guy had basically run into the bathroom and went to one paper towel dispenser and essentially just shoved a roll of paper towels in and just rolled out. Didn't feed it through, didn't do any of the process, just said, get in there. And basically, I would assume just running to the next bathroom to get some semblance of, you know, a filling into the next one.
You know,
It was
there
pathetic, man. It was
it was
pathetically
bad.
bad.
You know, one thing that
Yeah.
I've always wondered is how do, like tracks, right? Like it's so different, right? Football stadiums, you know, they've got A, so much money, B, you know, they run it like football stadiums, soccer, like outdoor stadiums, right?
Right. They're
you know,
doing they're doing 150 events a year.
right. They're doing a
type of
ton.
thing. Right. Right.
NASCAR tracks, I mean, I guess like concert, but again, I would imagine that most of the events that are not major NASCAR events, like you're not bringing in all of these people, and like how much of that staff is new, and then you know, because I will agree that there's never been a NASCAR track where I'm like, this is a world class facility. It's always like,
It's a shit show.
I've been in the
And-
Navy, so like I'm used to
Yes.
like concrete everywhere and pissing on walls, basically. Like it just like you just drunkenness everywhere. Not that I pissed that wall at Richmond, just that's what it's like. Yeah, they don't even have stalls. It's just one
Yeah,
big
trough.
long
They got the
sink.
old
Yeah.
troughs,
I
yeah.
know, like
Like I understand the complexity and the difficulty of all the people who could work on Sunday, maybe they couldn't necessarily work on Monday. That I understand staffing difficulties. I get all of that. However, I feel like even as a new guy to the sport, I understand that this whole season, April and May in the Mid-Atlantic, it rains constantly. You would
Yeah.
think they would have, you know, a backup plans in place for this kind of stuff, and not just have it be an abject shit show, which is exactly what it was. A failure on every level, dude. Like it was
Right.
really, really bad.
right. Now to the race. MTJ gets the bug, the losing bug off of his back. Him and his brother sweep the weekend. You guys said the racing was really good. It did feel pretty good. I felt like those long runs, that diamonding of the corner really came into play. How did you guys feel about kind of you said the product was good. What were you guys kind of watching throughout the race? Obviously, William Byron took off. Like every time we go to one of these races, it's like the 24 just disappears into a zip code, and then everybody else follows. What were you guys keeping an eye on for the most part?
It was, well, so there were a few different key moments during that race that I distinctly remember while I was watching. Because I know in the very beginning, I remember this because I was very happy about it. Was like, yes, the 24 was fast, but the 11 was very quick too.
Very quick. Yep.
Denny got off to a really fast start, and there was a point where I really did think that once they got closer to lap traffic, he was going to run Byron down, especially in that first stage. I thought that once, like, because they started to get to lap traffic, Denny started to close in, and I mean, I was pretty convinced that had there been maybe another 10 laps or so, that he probably would have caught him and passed him, just with the way that that was going. But that also wasn't the only stage where Byron, took off. Now, one of the other moments that I distinctly remember was seeing Byron noticeably slow down. It wasn't just like it would, like, in person, it was obvious that something was going on, because as he was going, there was that point where he was fast and it felt like he was uncatchable, and even like the only thing that could have possibly slowed him down was lap traffic. And then at some point, as they got to that second stage, excuse me, he was just noticeably slower. You could tell that he had been running that inside line throughout the bulk of the entire, it was like he was on a rail running around the inside line around those turns. And then it seemed like he started to drift outside a little bit more. He started to get to the backstretch, and he just didn't have that same zip that he had coming off of 2. And so that was one thing I noticed. And then the other thing I noticed that was towards the end of that second stage, all of a sudden, it was not too long after a pit stop that Martin Truex just gained steam. And I mean, it was visibly different how much faster he started moving at some point. I don't know what adjustment that they made that turned his car into a rocket ship, but at some point he just started flying. And I'm not going to take anything away from the one, Chastain. I mean, despite all the other stuff that we'll get into here in a bit, Chastain had a quick car, and he was doing really well at navigating his way around the track, and was doing a really good job as the leader. And then at some point, Truex really caught lightning in a bottle and it just completely, ran him down, which was very impressive to watch. That was compelling racing, just watching those two guys go at it.
And then that happens, and he's leading, and then Chastain finds something, the new line going to the outside.
Oh, yeah.
It was actually, again, if you guys didn't catch it, Chastain almost got caught by somebody else in third. I can't recall if that was Hamlin. I can't recall if that was Blaney or if that was somebody else.
I think it was Blaney, because Blaney was chasing down that 3 spot for a good while. He was cycling back and forth between 3 and 4.
Chastain was in second. I'll have to go back and watch. But point is somebody had caught Chastain and was ready to pass him. And Chastain went up a lane, and that's when Chastain hopped off the bottom lane up into diamonding the corner more. And it was just like, whoa. Chastain was like, I'm quick. And he went from getting past to catching Truex very, very quickly. One of the things they were talking about on the broadcast was the rear grip, the rear tire grip was something that, at some tracks they really eat at the right front. You have to protect the right front. It looks like this track really attacks the right rear, and knowing how to drive the tires and the right rear tires in a way that doesn't kill them, but also allows you to keep speed. And that, honestly, that explains why a guy like Jimmy and Truex drive so well here, because of that driving style. I would say those are the 2 kings of Dover for all intents and purposes. It's going to be Jimmy Johnson first, and then Martin Truex. And that's interesting driving style wise. Not that I know a lot about Truex's, but like Bell was running 5th, and then he killed the tires and he dropped like a rock. Then me and Corey were actually texting the conundrum of Kyle Busch gets a speeding penalty, gets sent to the back after the competition caution. Then right in front of you guys, Daniel Suarez spun out. How gnarly was that?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it was wild.
That was wild.
I don't know if it was where they were, like on that front stretch. He hit the inside wall of the front stretch, and you could just hear like the crunch.
Dude, Ty Dillon is the one who hit the wall. Like,
yeah, Somebody got
Right, yeah.
because I remember hearing it like, yeah, that was like it was right next to me.
And that's
the way
Dover. It washes you like you hit the outside
Yes.
wall, you hit the inside wall. That's how Dover goes, and that's why that clip I had shown you for again Jimmy Johnson love here, but him losing it in the same spot Suarez did, and you saw what happened to Suarez. Now imagine a car spinning about 5 more times and not touching a wall somehow. Dover is terrifying in that regard. It is. There's not a lot of places to go to avoid a wreck either. But that, and you've done it when we iRace, right? That coming out of that turn, you know that little hump?
it lifts.
Yeah, it
comes
just
up,
lifts, and it just and
Yeah.
Daniel actually
They
said he
had-
thought a tire was going down too.
They are so fast coming out. That high line coming out of 2, you could watch them going down the backstretch, and they would catch the guys in front of them like they were standing still. And
Right.
it was tough to see from where we were sitting if that was what was happening coming out of 4 as well. But the amount of like times that they'd go by us on the front stretch, and they got, Chastain would have caught up to Truex a little bit or whatever. Like the coming out of 2 and 4 was insane. And
Right.
to go back to the Byron thing, you guys both, I owe you both credit. You are absolutely right about William Byron. Both of you, it's not up for debate anymore. The guy is stupid fast in clean air, and like unbelievably way faster than everyone else in clean air. And then you put him in traffic, and he just can't do it. I don't know what
Right.
the deal is there. Like it's
Well,
perfectly clear
well for
because
what it is.
he had the fastest car by a
Right.
mile
Right.
at the first 2 stages. And then as soon as you get in those runs that were long enough that he could catch the lappers, that whoever was in second was catching him easy.
Right. Another thing too is they might be tuning their setups more for the short run versus a guy like Alex Bowman, who their setups seem to be for the long run, right?
Who's that?
Right. But like just in that camp, that might be something. Also, Byron's style. Here's the thing. You've again a year and a half in NASCAR. Not trying to like don't any disrespect, but this is even though this is what's going on for Byron, this is still a major step up from Byron. For a while, it was just Byron in the back, Byron in the middle, maybe a race,
like
right?
2 or 3 races this year, right? So,
Right.
It's
Right. But
I'm not taking
before
shots
then,
at the guy,
but
it's
before
very
that-
clearly different.
Right, but before
between clean air
that,
and dirty.
last year he had 2 wins, which were Martinsville and Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. He won one of the Atlanta races last year. He had a pretty decent year at Darlington, but before that, I think he had 1 win. If I had to wager, I believe William Byron has less than 6 wins. I can do a quick Google check here for us. Yeah, but 6 victories in all. And not to say that that's not good. He's 24, 25 years old. The thing is he's in a hot rod. But this has been a step up. So him leading the laps is cool. Now Hendrick Motorsports can go, okay, we've got the pace. We've got the confidence. Now we've got to find a way to put it together at the end. And that's why I put on our little list here, Byron's Blaney blunder. And it reminds me a lot of Blaney last year, which is just like stupid fast out the gate. They unload a quick car that's built right for what he does. He goes out there, leads a bunch of laps, and then something happens, right? Pit road. In this case, you mentioned it, Byron kind of wore down the tires, same way the other guys are, and then immediately just kind of faded back because after the Logano spin, while everybody's eyes were on Chastain, and just in case did you guys know that 3 cars took 2 tires and everybody else took 4 at the end
We
there?
were calling that
I
out
know-
as it was
I know.
happening on that pit stop.
So
Bro,
yeah.
I was losing my shit at the end of that race because I'm like, if Truex doesn't take 2 tires,
Right.
he's going to lose.
He's going to
Like,
lose. You've been
Take
burned.
2 tires, yes.
Right.
And that's what he did, and they won the race.
Right. So they
2
took
tires
2.
is the answer again.
I think Blaney may have taken 2, and somebody else
Blaney
took
got
2.
smoked at the end.
Chastain
He
was
got
the first to take
absolutely
4,
smoked.
and he ripped through and almost caught him, but he just getting done. But yeah, you're right. Like you've preached that multiple times. At this rate, with the way that some of these tracks are, like Auto Club, Kansas this week, right? We're going to talk about that. That's not a track you could take 2 at. You're going to be taking 4. But some of these other tracks, it looks like, hey, you should really be taking 2 and seeing how this thing, plays out. But no, like Chastain, I think Chastain catches him without the Logano caution. Because
Probably.
because not only was he kind of catching him and exploring different lines and better on different lines than Truex was, considering that Larson threw maybe everybody's favorite block of the year.
Oh yeah.
Was
Buddy,
that-
let me tell you something.
was that
You ready
loud?
for me to-
Corey
you
cheered
ready?
for Kyle Larson.
I clapped for Kyle Larson at the race on Monday. The whole place was going ape shit
yes.
while Larson is throwing blocks on because I mean it's Truex's home track, obviously.
Right.
They were losing it. And I got to Kyle Larson, I respect the hell out of him, right? I don't like him. I think he's annoying on TV. That being said, to do what in the last 2 weeks, to take the shot that he took at Talladega and then to go just sack up and block the shit out of Chastain.
Right.
Like, I couldn't help it. I clapped for the guy. I'm not turned around on him. I still think he's annoying, but I respect the hell out of what he's done for the last 2 weeks. It's unbelievable, dude. That place was going nuts.
The atmosphere, that's the other thing, Finn, is that like this was, I can say, even being a longer term fan than Corey, like it's one of those things that I don't really feel, you don't always see that same atmosphere at a track as there may have been like in days gone by really anymore, because it feels like a lot of fans are so much more segmented. Because, you watch a lot of older races and, you can really, like, first of all, broadcast back in the day, you used to actually catch a lot more crowd noise during an actual race that you don't really get in the broadcast anymore.
That's because Dale Jr. doesn't lead laps anymore in NASCAR.
Well, so that's the other thing.
Dude, when Dale Jr. used to lead laps in NASCAR, Corey, you could hear that shit through the fucking TV. You knew exactly who was leading. And it was the 8 car or the 88 at the time.
Exactly.
The loudest I've ever heard a crowded NASCAR race. I heard him over the engines at the 600 when when Junior took the lead the last lap of the 600, but he ran out of gas in the backstretch, and Kevin Harvick won that race. But yeah, when it was
a very cool atmosphere,
dude,
especially while Larson was doing his thing.
Hell yeah. And I actually texted you like during that time of the race. Larson, again, you guys aren't privy to lap times and who's quick. In fact, I'd say Corey thought that I was talking about Kyle Busch. Obviously, after the little wreck with Dillon, he's the one who spun Ty Dillon because he was back there because of the speeding penalty. In case you guys may have not gotten to see replays and the benefit of that. So he bought a bunch of duct tape on the car in front of the front splitter, and that's normally an aerodynamic killer, right? Just your front splitter's messed up; it's not pushing air correctly. Kyle Busch was crazy fast. He drove back from the 30th to like the teens. So I was talking, when I texted Corey, I said, holy, and it was right after Larson got spun. I said, he was the fastest on the track by a mile. And then he goes, Corey says, dude, Kyle Busch was flying. And I was like, yeah, he was. But also, at that time, everybody on the track was running 24 to 25s. Kyle Larson was in the low 23s. Kyle was insane fast, and he had mowed down all of the top 10, and he was mowing down Chastain, and I think that's why Chastain felt that pressure and was like, oh, fuck. But it's like 80 laps in the race. I don't think we need to get into it. This was a clear Chastain being Ross Chastain. This wasn't a perceptions reality. You got a bad reputation. This is a dude, and not only that, the dude he ran over, Brandon Poole, this is his first race of the year, and he's battling the 3 car for position. Like, just because there's a difference. If you're a lapper at a super speedway race, if you're a lapper at a 1.5 mile track, if you're a lapper at a road course, you're insignificant. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
But when you're at Dover, you're a lap car, but you're fighting for top 20s. You're not insignificant. You're not required to move over and give your lane up. And in fact, all of these laps matter so much. Like we saw a situation on the track where people were fighting Truex to stay from going 2 laps down because they could be so that they could be a lucky dog, because then that Logano caution came out. So, and that brought in, but even considering the block, Chastain was able to still run down MTJ after, and then Ty Gibbs threw a block on him. That was sick too.
Yeah.
So Gibbs threw a block.
The stones on Ty Gibbs, man.
To throw a block.
That guy is super fast lately.
I was going to say, like, to your point, Finn, is that to me, if the track is a mile or less, your lappers are racers.
They're racers.
You know what I mean? Like at any point they're racing. And also something to acknowledge is as we were starting to get down towards the end, like right before that last caution, it was only 9 cars in the lead lap. The top 10 was about to get lapped by how fast, the top 2 cars were going, which was absolutely crazy. Yeah. But and it was a lot of single file. But yeah, that was wild just to see those blocks.
If we're side by side, I don't have room to go. It's Dover. It's not Auto Club. I don't have we can just slide up out of the way and continue our side by side battle while you go low. It's Dover. Yeah. It's 2.5 lanes wide anyways. There was some 3 widening there. It was definitely fun on the restarts and stuff. Chastain early on the outside was throwing it 3 wide. But I mean, outside of that, I thought it was a solid race. Good. Anytime you have that tire fall off, the comers and goers, it's good. This is what I do expect. I expect Martin Truex Jr. to win 2 more races this year,
Whew,
without a doubt.
that's a spicy prediction.
Well, Truex is a dog. I think again, because of the slump, because of everything going on. Truex also, I mean, just separate. Truex has been had a very very long time girlfriend. They like battled. She had cancer, and they battled through it, and they broke up going into this season. Like long time, like basically married situation. So like obviously Truex has got this slump. Truex is dealing with this breakup that's probably very difficult on him. To get this off of his back, yes, the clash was there, and now we see it's the speed. Now a dub there at Dover. I think this is a situation, considering then how fast the Toyotas have been. I could see MTJ going and winning this the fall race in Richmond, and then MTJ's always a threat at a track like Charlotte and stuff like that. So I think 2 more wins, now that that's kind of off their backs, they could just lock in and focus on speed and winning races. Now that they know that they're in the playoffs, I'm fully expecting. I don't know if he's a championship contender in my brain just yet, but he's been quick lately. That Richmond race should have been his. It is what it is. News in NASCAR. So Josh Berry, I think he did pretty solid in the 48. He obviously did solid in the 9. There's some rumors that Josh Berry is being tasked to the 4 next year.
I could see that.
I think he's well earned himself a ride. When I think about the people that have earned the 4 car, that also are going to carry names or sponsorships, right? Josh Berry, a really talented driver. His name is big in the news with everything that's going on. He's obviously got Dale Jr. Backing there. I don't know how much. I do know the issue with Josh Berry before was sponsorship. It was really the reason why, because I guess they met on iRacing. Josh Berry met Dale Jr. on iRacing, and while Josh was a small track racer, and they became friends through iRacing, and then naturally they're here, and now this dude's driving Jimmy Johnson or the 48 and the 9, right? Frederick Motorsports, right? Pretty crazy story in and of itself. But the issue with getting him a full-time ride in the Xfinity Series was that Josh didn't carry sponsorship. This was 2-3 years ago. Well, now I wonder if things have changed.
Yeah, I would think so. He's super competitive in 2 different cars this year.
Right. Now, if the 4 maintains its sponsorship, but we're expecting Busch to leave fully, the 4 cars. So bringing sponsorship to the 4 also, or the 10 if he were to go to the 10. Eric Almirola has his sponsorship. The Smithfield Barbecue is not the Tony sponsorship. That is Eric Almirola. So, but you as a Stewart Haas guy, you're welcoming of a guy like Josh Berry to the team?
Of course.
Okay, I didn't know if you had any eyes. Zane Smith is a young Ford name in the pop. I'm just really concerned because, again, Ford camp. Junior's not going with them. That's Ford. Junior's a Chevy guy.
The only person, we have Riley Herbst as a possibility.
Right.
I kind of doubt that's going to happen. But Riley Herbst has the monster thing.
Okay.
The only other person, and it's Haley Deegan, man. I know it's gonna be a couple years, but it would be so sick for Haley.
It would. I just need her to get out of trucks and see if what that one thing she did in it. Because the 2 times I've seen her in racing outside of trucks, she looked really good. Like literally passing the Tony Stewart on dirt multiple times and running up front, and then the top 10 in the Xfinity Series. But the results have to come at the truck series to get to the Xfinity Series, and she's not quite there. And she's in pretty good equipment, so. But I'm not going to pretend I know the nuances of that.
And that's more of a team image thing, honestly, more than anything else. Like in terms of who do you want to bring in, if you can get a guy like Josh Berry to take the 4, I mean, Stewart Haas has 2 seats to fill next year,
right?
And both, like you said, both sponsors are leaving, so you might as well get a talented guy if you don't necessarily have the sponsorship. I know it's not really how it works, and money is more important, frankly, than I think it should be in the sport, but. Yeah, if you can get a guy like that, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, you can.
Jeff, any rounds on that?
Yeah, I think that I personally think it's kind of crazy that we're at this point where, at the beginning of the season, we were kind of like, Josh Berry's taking the 9, huh? And it's nothing to take away from him. But if you go back to early episodes, we were like, this should be interesting. This is what we're about to see. And to me, he's proven that he can race at this level. I mean, and it didn't take very long to show that he can run a cup car, because it's not like they put him in any kind of junker equipment. The man drove the 9 car, and then he's driven Hendrick Cup cars, and he hasn't been problematic.
Right.
He hasn't come out there and been there ruffling feathers, and he hasn't been somebody that has been a thorn in anybody's side. He's except actually being somebody to race against. He's coming out there and prove that he can run. So I could see that. I mean, I'm sure he's definitely going to be a target, if not jumping into the 4 or the 10. Somebody's going to have eyes on him going into next year or the year after. Absolutely. There's no question about that.
So the interesting thing about Stewart-Haas is that they've got 2 rides to fill. And I think that if I'm Tony Stewart, right, Briscoe is going to be a young guy. Preece is a bit kind of older. Preece isn't like young. He's in his early 30s, if I'm not mistaken. And Josh Berry, day one, would be the oldest person at Stewart-Haas Racing in terms of the spot, which I would go, you'd like to think maybe get a more perspective of car, maybe somebody with a little bit more juice, maybe that's overdriven their current equipment. And I will say this, while Josh Berry has looked good, while Josh Berry is a short track god from what he does, he's not overdriving Hendrick equipment. He is underdriving a Hendrick equipment. I get it. He looked decent at the dirt race. He squeaked out second on a strategy car at Richmond. But for all intent, and granted, yes, we get it. He's a part-time driver. He doesn't race these cars. He hadn't had all the time to prep. He's just hopping in and going, right? And he did squeeze out like a top 10 or top 11 at Dover. So there is things to be said there. But he's not overdriving this equipment. So the fact that he's there and competitive, better than maybe Noah was last year in the 48, or who took over the 40 or the 23 last year, Ty Gibbs, right? He's better than what Ty Gibbs. Right. He's better than what Gibbs did last year. He's better than what Noah Gragson did. So there's something to be said there, dude. Todd Gilliland.
I knew it was coming.
God damn, dude.
Todd Gilliland's killing it. That's the one guy who is he is driving the hell out of that car. I didn't hear about him at all last year, and now he just popped up. It's like, dude, I don't know what you've been doing, but boy,
right now
Todd Gilliland is flying.
But let me see the results here, because I remember seeing him fairly near the top, unless he got wrapped up in some stuff. So it looks like he finished 25th, but I just remember,
he was running top 10.
Look who's top 10, Todd Gilliland. That is what I see when I'm thinking, and that's what I think, like at the 10 seat, bro. If I'm thinking, who can I put in the 10 right now that has got some, not going to need, because he doesn't need a whole lot of sponsorship. He's good at every track. He's good at dirt. He's good at short tracks. He's good at road. He's very good at road courses. He doesn't even need that much more sponsorship than what he has now, because he's already driving top 10 and 15s now. That's right now. Todd Gilliland would be the second best driver at Stewart-Haas, and he's driving a dog shit car.
I have to think that if Josh Berry came in, that would be cool, right? But I have to imagine that for either the 4 or the 10, you're going to get at least one of Gilliland, Riley Herbst, or see the Cole Custer come back.
I don't know if Cole's driving good enough to earn a comeback.
He just won the Dash for Cash thing for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't win the race, but he's been doing okay down in Xfinity.
I would say Riley's a little young to put in the 4. I think the 4 is considered, while the 14 is the flagship number, the 4 is considered up there. You know what I'm saying? That's a coveted ride in my brain. That's a top 2 car in one of the top Ford shops. So, but LaJoy has earned LaJoy, and he's got ties. Like those are 2 guys that are running extremely well, and it's hard. It's hard because it's not fair for those guys. It's gonna be like Jeb Burton or somebody's kid. Not to talk shit about Jeb Burton or anything like that, but it's just it just seems like it's always this one little thing that stops these dudes that are they're out there busting their ass. So hopefully we see it. I definitely am curious. Speaking about rides, Legacy Motor Club announced today that they're moving to Toyota. First of all, to clear the air, I've never given shit about manufacturer. I have no issue supporting a Jimmy Johnson team at Toyota. Also, that being said, I think it's pretty obvious here that my second driver should be Todd fucking Gilliland and not anybody else. I think at this rate, I should just go invest in Todd Gilliland gear. Get the one T-shirt that's on the market at the Todd Gilliland holler. But I was talking to Nate earlier, Silver Thunder, and we were talking about the move, and obviously, so I don't know if it's because of, or if it's a result of, or it's because of like Chevy cut Legacy Motor Club out. No simulation. So the Chevy simulation system, like big $1 million Chevy simulation thing, is on the Hendrick campus. And if any of the Chevy teams want time on the simulator, they have to go there and find. That's why Hendrick has such an advantage with it being on their campus and so many drivers getting the simulator. Whereas, now granted, keep in mind, all these teams are in Charlotte. It's not like traveling across the world. They're all in Charlotte together. But like the sim is on Hendrick's campus as far as I'm concerned for the Chevy simulator. RCR goes there, Trackhouse goes there. In fact, if you are a Chevy team, you have a partnership with one of those three: Trackhouse, RCR, or Hendrick. Spire's got Hendrick. I don't know. Trackhouse has got their Project 91. I don't know if anybody's following. Maybe it's RCR and Hendrick together. I don't know. Rick Ware might be. They might be Mustangs. I can't remember. But anyways, Legacy is completely independent. They used to have a RCR partnership. They do not. Legacy has been independent, and now it looks like they're cut off from in terms of Chevy, in terms of getting help from other teams, getting production. They're just getting bullshit every week. And I don't know if that's because of the Toyota move, or it's what sparked the Toyota move. But it looks like Jimmy Johnson and Maury Gallagher have other plans, so they're gonna make the move to Toyota. They think they'd rather be the 7th and 8th best Toyotas than being the 12th, 13th best Chevys. I think Eric Jones is going to go with that easy peasy. They are under contract. I wonder, though, and I'm trying to figure out and find information on if Noah Gragson is tied to Chevy or not. Nate seems to imply that he's tied to Chevy in a way that the OEM will not be happy with Noah Gragson leaving. But then again, they weren't that happy about Tyler Reddick. You know, he announced he's going to go leave from a Chevy team. So I'm very curious, because losing Noah Gragson as a prospect to Toyota would be absolutely insane for Chevy. So just initial thoughts for you guys. Does it matter to you guys, the backings of that, or what's up?
I'm cool with bringing in more talent and having more Toyotas out in the field. That's my biggest thing, is that one of the things we run into, particularly on super speedway races, is that you have 6 Toyotas in the field.
Right.
Like adding, while everybody else is either Ford or Chevy. And when you run into these scenarios where you have basically manufacturer pit stops, like on one end, when you look at that, it's like, okay, we have fewer cars to get down and get through and get back in.
Right.
You know, just that's okay, cool. You have less baggage in that regard.
Right.
But at the same time, you also have less allies.
Right.
Toyota doesn't have the same amount of, manufacturer friendliness that the other two have out there on the track. So to me, adding a couple extra allies out there, not mad about it. Being able to have a few other people to join in with some pack racing and join in tandem draft and kind of get more Toyotas out there to be able to kind of come together or develop a strategy, all for it. Because the more you get out there, the more you have the ability to compare notes and kind of get those cars really up to snuff. So, and then also you're getting a young guy like Gragson in the mix. At that point, that makes the Toyota teams, that just adds more youth. It injects more youth into the team.
That puts the 2 top rookies of this year. Yeah. And the last 2, I mean, I don't know if Noah has a championship at that series, but the 2 most dominant Xfinity Series drivers of the last couple seasons in the Toyota camp, on top of Tyler Reddick, on top of Bubba Wallace. Like, that's absurd. That sets Toyota up crazy if there's a way that... And Bell. Yes, and Bell. And Bell.
Bell's super young, yeah.
And Bell. And another thing that's very important to note is Joe Gibbs Racing, and I think this is something Jimmy's anticipating, I don't see a situation where Denny doesn't leave and go drive for 23XR. It has to happen. It's going to happen at some point. I know Denny said he wants to keep it separate, but I'll tell you what, when Truex retires and it's Gibbs is getting all of the Gibbs is going to be the guy going forward, then it might be like, all right, it's time to go. Or maybe the JGR just kind of starts. And again, I don't want to, I hate to talk about it, but at the end of the day, time catches all. And coach's time will go, and what's going to happen after that to the thing, right? It could be very smooth. It could be a very smooth transition. Obviously, everything that happened last year at the end of the year may have thrown a wrench into that. And we mentioned that Ty Gibbs was doing good, and I think it's really good to see that because it's encouraging. Because not only did he lose his father, he lost his dog right before the 500. So he's going through all these emotions all through a very short time span. And as we see, we get further and further from
19 years old.
Right. And as we get further and further from that, you can see the healing kind of happen, and you see him being able to focus more on the race car driving, and he's doing really good for himself. And also laying low, I think he's gaining a lot more fans this year. The whole persona at the end of last year, that's on to Ross Chastain. He made a fan of himself by blocking Ross Chastain there.
Yeah.
For his teammate to help him win that race, even though the caution changed that. So, listen, if that quick we saw Ty Gibbs turn around and to be a hero, no, Toyota's in a great spot. But they might be, Legacy Motor Club might be seeing like, hey, listen, the writing might be on the wall for Joe Gibbs, and we will be the second premier Toyota team, if that, because we've seen Roush fade, DEI when everything happened to Dale.
Yep.
Completely up in shambles and disarray, and you look back at that, and I don't think Dale Jr. got enough credit for carrying that those cars. That I think you look back, they're probably B tier rides, C+ tier rides that Dale Jr. is rolling out there. So, I think that there's a lot to be said about that. But it's a very interesting call for Jimmy Johnson's team. I think everybody anticipated a partnership announcement with Hendrick Motorsports and that Legacy Motor Club with the junior motorsports prodigy driver Noah Gragson, that this is going to be bam. And then now Jimmy said, fuck this, we're going to Toyota. And it also shows me that Jimmy's got other things in mind other than just trying to partner up with Hendrick and run it back like the old days. Like Jimmy's like, no, this is our race team. We entertain all offers, and this is the best one. So that Jimmy's not partial to Rick Hendrick and being a test production thing for the 48, the 24, the 9, and the 5. They want to go win races. So I'd be super stoked if I was a Legacy Motor Club fan. If I'm Eric Jones, I'm fucking psyched to be back at Toyota. They've got all the young talent. So and Eric Jones is 27?
Yeah.
26. Eric Jones is 26. So that whole everybody almost all the talent that's not Hendrick under the age of 27 is about to be either Toyotas or Chase Briscoe. So
in one foul swoop, it's about to be the JGR and the Toyota, all of JGR 2311 and now Legacy. The Toyota is going to be the premier youth team.
Right.
And it's not just like, oh, you've got a bunch of young drivers out there in general. You have young drivers who can win. Because when you look at Tyler Reddick, when you look at Christopher Bell, and pretty soon, I mean, Gibbs is going to get up there in the front here at some point. He's moving further and further through the pack as we go. Right. So you will become the premier manufacturer for young drivers to get through, and you will establish a stable of drivers that you will have for years to come, as long as you, and if they win, they'll lock in those sponsors. I mean, you're already looking at the way that Bell is locked in DeWalt, he's locked in Ream, he's got
Yahoo.
Prime sponsors.
Yeah. Also, Yahoo, probably my favorite car. The fact that like nobody uses Yahoo anymore, and you just got Chris Bell driving around, and you're like, kid, you don't even know what Yahoo is. Shut up. That'd be like Ty Gibbs and the Ask Jeeves Toyota. The Ask Jeeves.
It's funny you bring up the looks of the Toyotas, because to me, the last little linchpin for the Toyota takeover in the Cup Series is bring the Supras to the Cup Series.
The Supras do look so good in Xfinity.
Supras in Xfinity look sick, and if like the Camrys look good, the Camrys look good. That Supra looks so badass. Like that Ty Gibbs Monster Energy Supra last year was sick as hell.
Right, and
it would just I'm sure there's regulations and all this kind of stuff why they can't do that, but like very, very, very simple for me. That's the final step. You want to own the Cup Series, switch to the Supras. Let's go.
I get down with that. Corey, you have returned to the top, brother.
The earth is healing.
The victory lane. Did you have time in your 5 hours of parking and everything to think about what you were going to say today?
So mine is very simple this week. One, I had Briscoe in the garage. 14, just you've been doing so good, and then I show up to the race. I need to just do Chase Briscoe the biggest favor that anyone's ever done.
Quit
for me.
going.
Just burn all my gear and just start rooting for Kyle Larson, and then Kyle Larson will just never win another race again. But no, in all seriousness, my victory lane this week is I got to see my cousin Jason and his family, his lovely wife Janelle, his daughter Peyton, my uncle Chuck, who I don't really ever get to see. My family from Pennsylvania came down. It was super cool to see them. Go into the race. Like if you'd have told me 2 years ago, or even a year and a half, that I'd be sitting at a NASCAR race in Dover, Delaware with my uncle Chuck and my cousin Jason, I'd have been like, you're out of your mind. But it was such a cool experience. It was great to see them. Everybody looked like they were having a great time. My cousin's kid, Finn, her name is Peyton. She's probably like, I don't know how old she is. Probably like 8 or 9 or something like that. I don't know, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there.
She's gonna be like,
She's a
15.
Logano fan. She's
nice.
She's not that old. She's a Logano fan, right? She was losing her mind the entire race. I have not seen, like, David had fun when I took him down to Richmond. This little girl was having a ball.
Right.
And then Logano wrecked at the end, and you could just see like the
depression, sadness hit.
Yeah. But she was cool. It was such a cool thing to get to just go there with family. We went to Dover. You met Jason last year at Dover when we got rained out.
Right.
So this was the reunion, so for whatever that's worth. And it was really cool. Jason, Janelle, Peyton, Uncle Chuck, it was cool to see you. That's victory lane.
Hell yeah. Oh,
well done.
Yep. Well done. We love a good, wholesome. All right.
They're also listeners.
No,
I should also say,
No.
Janelle made it known that as she's hanging out at work, she will often tune into the pod. So we are
Who's her favorite
easy
driver?
listening.
Who's her favorite driver?
She is who does she like? Is it Elliot? I think she had an Elliot. I think she had an Elliot hoodie on. Am I crazy about that?
All right, we'll get down with that.
I think it's Elliot. Yeah. Jason's a Keselowski fan.
Right.
And Peyton is I don't know who my Uncle Chuck roots.
Keselowski was pretty fast too. Top 10. He was around all day.
Yeah.
He had a great run. There were multiple times where he was quick, and I thought he was going to be making a run at some point. Yeah. He was in the thick of it in those battles.
He got caught on the tire thing.
Fifth.
That's what it was. He had the loose tire, unsecured equipment.
Oh, by the way, final point of victory lane. I have to apologize to Jeff on the on the final restart. They're coming to pit. Denny's in fourth place, and I look over at Jeff and I'm like, Denny's about to win this race. And then disaster in the pit box.
Oh, no.
I'm looking at Jeff, like I look at Denny and I just hear Jeff in my left ear going, what are they doing? And he's just screaming.
You guys can see it, like you guys can see Denny's pits from where you are.
Sure.
Oh,
sure.
Jesus!
I was like, bro, I'll never say it to you again.
I was watching it, and the mental stopwatch in my head is just like tick, 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 tick.
It was
I'm like, why? Like, you
long.
could just see them struggling over on that left side and trying to work on something on his driver's side of the car, and I'm like, oh,
they said the lug got stuck in the gun. They said the lug.
Okay, that makes sense because the right side, smooth, quick, ready to go. Got to the left side, and it was just like.
And if he would have just taken 2 tires like Corey tells everybody to, would have been a problem.
2 tires.
He was yelling
honestly,
that. Like
I was shocked that they didn't, honestly, because Truex did. Dude, it's Finn. It's indisputable at this point, dude. When you have like at tracks like that, when you have like 10 laps to go, you just take 2 tires, so you keep your track position. You get enough grip to get you to the front. It's happened 4 or 5 times this year.
Right.
Like if I see the 4 car take 4 tires again with 10 laps to go in the race, I'm gonna lose my mind. It's what are we doing? Right. It's so easy, and they just.
It just used to be so different. 4 tires with grip used to be so different, but it looks like with these cars and the downforce, you can get through 2 to 3 laps before it matters. But we're going to Kansas, where I would say that's not something that would matter, and this is one of the high-flying tracks on the circuit. And your boys, your Toyotas dominate this race. Obviously, Kurt Busch won it last year, and then Bubba Wallace won his. Bubba needs to win bad. Are we expecting to see something from him? I mean, he's been kind of iffy on these non-plate tracks. I haven't been able to see him up front all that much. But a big break for Bubba would change a lot of things, for sure.
I agree. And so, to me, in general, I think this would be one that I think that 2311 could and should show out for this race in particular, just given the history. So, since we're leading into Kansas, let me break down a few fast facts for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll get some info going, and then we'll get some previews and predictions. So, Kansas Speedway. It broke ground in 1999. First race was in 2001. It is a mile and a half, and it has a progressive banking of 17 to 20 degrees. Attendance for a race there is at 48K. At one point, there were talks about trying to have it be somewhere in the 70 to 80,000 range, but that did not work out. So it sits at 48K now. We know that with some of these tracks that were built more recently, that chances for expansion, especially if it becomes a more popular circuit on the schedule, we could see that increase. And the fastest lap in a Cup car on that was in 2015 by Kyle Larson at 28.857 seconds. So, leading into Kansas, there's a couple of storylines. Like I'm taking this one mainly because you had mentioned specifically that this has been a Toyota track,
Right.
For the last few years. It's been, we've seen the Toyotas figure out how to get around this track and how to move fast. And it's an entertaining race. It's definitely fun to watch. I enjoyed last year, both times for, fandom reasons, but also it's just been a fun one to watch. And I'd never really expected to say that about Kansas at one time, but the last couple of years with these last two gens of cars, it's been fun to watch. But yeah, it's been for the last, 10 races there. Toyota has taken, I think 6 out of those last 10. So, they're there, they're quick, they're fast. It's worth watching that, and it's a safe bet to put your money behind a Toyota for that. Now, to that same point though, we do have Kyle Busch riding in a Chevy, and we saw how fast he was at Dover until things got a little dicey for him. And Busch brothers both have run Kansas well. And then, Logano won this race a few years ago. That was something to note, but
Right.
I don't know. To me, it's time for 2311 to show out at this track. I think Reddick or Bubba, should place well. This is one they should be placing emphasis on getting a couple of fast cars out there for this one in particular. And you're right. Bubba needs a win bad.
Right.
He needs to get himself in. We've talked about this multiple times over the last few weeks. When is that going to come? When are we going to see that highlight reel moment for him? Because it's felt like it's coming. It's felt like he's going to break through, that it's going to get there, and it just hasn't quite happened yet. So we'll see if Kansas can be the one again to make a spark.
I just checked the results from the spring race in Kansas last year, and all 6 of the Toyotas finished in the top 10.
Right.
That is wild domination.
Yeah, they're very fast. In fact, the only car that I think has a single chance to beat them this weekend is going to be the 5. That's the only car.
Second last year.
Right. That is the only car that I think can do that. And this is a Kyle Larson track. Not to get off topic of the Toyotas, but if I had to pick, it's going to be Kyle Larson. I'm not picking anybody else because everybody I pick breaks their fucking back, apparently. So there's
Bro, I could not believe, dude, I listened back to the pod from last week because I listened back to it just a little self critique, right? Try to do a little better. And I'm like, Finn in a matter of 10 minutes was kind of sort of joking on guys getting hurt, and then predicted that Alex Bowman was going to win in Dover.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
on his birthday, the day he
he's
turns 30. He was able to walk away from it. That's good. But no, I mean, the Toyotas are so quick here. They've got something figured out. Denny won the 600 last year. They swept this racetrack last year, so they've got to figure something out. So I'm super excited. I think this is the new Auto Club. Really high line racing. Should be an absolute blast. Let's not forget that Blaney was pretty fast at Auto Club too. So I figured this is the first track. If you're fast at Auto Club, you should be fast here. We didn't get to see Larson because his blew up right as the race started. But I'm pretty excited. And then you also mentioned the Busch brothers. Kyle did win Auto Club, so that's another guy I would expect to be pretty quick here. So Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy in terms of breaking down this week. We definitely wanted to keep it short, allow you guys to talk more about Dover. But just the track itself, if you're ready to watch this weekend, the real goal is the lines. All right, where are the lines are people riding? Who's got speed on the bottom? And then watch those guys like Chris Bell and Tyler Reddick and Kyle Larson throw that thing up against the wall, and you'll wonder how the hell he hasn't scraped the number off the right side of that thing. So that's going to be
That
super
is-
exciting. I'm really hyped for this track.
Oh yeah, these intermediate tracks definitely have been the
Bangers.
superior. Yeah, just more exciting racing
Right.
with this package for sure.
Yeah.
They've tweaked the package a little bit with the short tracks and the dirt and all that stuff this year.
Yep.
It's gotten better, but all these 1.5 mile type tracks have just been just a joy to watch.
Yeah, they've been fun, and we've shown this car runs those lengths well. It's just been entertaining. You look at the Kansases of the world, you look at the Charlottes of the world, you look at some of the just 1.5 seems to have been this, at least last year. 1.5 was the sweet spot for this car. Everybody would have said super speedways were boring in this car, and then short tracks were boring in this car, but the 1.5s produced some of the most exciting racing in 2022, and I don't see that changing this year. As we get into the summer and we start to see more 1.5s happen, yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna see that pattern repeat. Now, that's not to say that they haven't made some tweaks and made some of these 1 mile tracks more exciting, which I'm glad to see. This past Monday was an exciting race. Richmond was a pretty exciting race. Like they're getting a mile down. They're figuring it out. They're getting a feel for this car,
Well,
but thus far, 1.5 is a king.
Well, for what it's worth, Dover runs the intermediate package. Dover and Bristol run the intermediate package. They don't run the Richmond package, and that kind of justifies what you guys saw on
That makes
Sunday.
sense.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Richmond was a huge improvement. Martinsville wasn't the worst thing. It's okay, but it wasn't the worst.
Was
but,
far from the best,
but Phoenix was pretty decent as well. So I'm super excited.
yeah. So,
Predictions, right? Who's going
yeah,
first this
that's
time?
where I was going next. Oh, I'm going first this time.
All right, you go first.
I'm going to do this just to not have it stolen. Now, I know it's going to sound, odd coming after what I was saying about, Bubba and Reddick, and needing to show out at this track. They still can show out on this track, aside from this prediction, and I think that they will. To that point, though, my pick for this race is Christopher Bell.
Okay.
I think that he comes in and takes this one. He wasn't running bad on Monday, wasn't running great, but that's the thing, is we've reached a point in which not running bad by Christopher Bell standards is, oh my goodness, he might scrape the outside of the top 10, but the dude is just constantly running up towards the front of the pack and is constantly a force to be reckoned with. Just about every week at this point, he's established himself as the 20 being a car to constantly watch. So I don't think that changes, considering this being a Toyota strong track. I think Christopher Bell takes it in Kansas.
Why don't you go, Corey?
Okay, I'm gonna do a intwreckpod first, and I am gonna pick Ty Gibbs to get his first win this weekend in Kansas.
Interesting.
He has been crazy fast. He's in the Toyota. They've been running very well. The car that he's in is, it's ready, right? They have the speed to go and win a race. And I think that we've, with the way that he's been running, top 10s, top 5s just consistently, I think we're going to get a treat this weekend, and we're going to get to see this young man get his first win in the Cup Series. Ty Gibbs is my pick for this week.
Interesting. I feel like this one's hand wrapped for you, fellas. We know Toyotas are dominant, so this is a Toyota driver. This driver started on the pole last year in which race? On the pole in the May race, or on second in the May race, and on the pole in the September race. Okay, and that was when he was in a Chevrolet. Now he's in a Toyota. We're gonna go to Tyler Reddick. He's driving the car that won this thing twice last year. He's disgustingly fast at this track anyways, and it suits his driving style. I think Tyler Reddick gets his, would it be his third win of the year, or is his second? I think he won COTA. He looked good at the other tracks.
Yeah, I think this would be his second win.
I think Tyler Reddick secures his second win of the season. So
that's fair. That would have been my secondary. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons I went first, because what I was waiting for was you to go and it be Christopher Bell. And then I was like, I got a secondary for him this time.
So
Right.
Well,
to
be
your-
pulling
to your-
it out.
to your last point, Finn, as well, I would not be surprised at all to just have Kyle Larson just humiliate everyone.
yeah, and then
can see
yes,
that as
and then
well.
very much true that
Yes.
if there's like on their best day, it's like the Toyota's gonna be here, and then Larson is just right there. So if he could stay
I-
clean, qualify high, this might be a race at the 5. Just
With-
can go like leave
With
everybody
the
on.
last 2 weeks that he's had, I wouldn't want to be in front of pissed off Kyle
Dude,
Larson.
it could be like, remember
At all.
Homestead last year? It could be a lot like
Yes.
Homestead last year, where you were like, "This is so boring." I'm like, "Yeah, that's because Larson's a clinic on the outside.
Dominating, yes.
Nobody can do what he does on the outside wall." Tyler Reddick is
So-
probably the closest we've seen. So
We are up to, by the way, with Truex, we're now up to 8 winners.
8
We're not-
winners.
We're like coming up to halfway through the season. We're not quite there yet, but
Mm-hmm.
we got 8 winners out of the 16 playoff spots. So it is going to get interesting. You got a
Right.
lot of guys who don't have a win yet, who probably need to get one. Harvick, Hamlin, it's
Right.
Bubba. It's gonna get spicy here in the next
Right.
couple of weeks.
I'd like to visit the predictions on whether or not we have point entries into the playoffs again when we get to the All-Star race, because
I'm
I
all
think
about it.
I think that would make sense as we get up towards the All-Star race. It would make sense to, kind of reevaluate that, because towards the beginning of the season, we were pretty much all dead set that, points were probably not going to get you to the playoffs. You
Right.
had to get to the front.
Right.
So I want to see if those opinions change, and the All-Star break is a good turning point for that. So,
I'm
Absolutely.
all for it.
Yep, we got that. We got some fun debates. We're gonna have some guests on here soon. I got some debate stuff lined up. I actually debated on Twitter. Me and Brad Kozlowski's brother, Brian Kozlowski, were going back and forth on Twitter till like 2 a.m. on the night of the draft, because we're both Lions fans. The Kozlowskis are from Michigan, and he was like, "No, they lost all credibility taking a running back." And we were just me and him, and he doesn't know I'm a NASCAR fan, and maybe he doesn't. I mean, maybe he assumes since I'm responding that I know that he's in NASCAR, but I just, I said, at like 2 a.m., I was like, "All right, Brian, good luck at Dover this weekend. I don't care." And I don't care to argue with you anymore. And if I would have won Victory Lane, I would have had a hate letter for Brian Kozlowski, shit talking the Lions on Thursday night just for us to absolutely kill the draft the next couple days. But that's not NASCAR related. We got some debates coming up. A little debate segment. I'm really excited about that. A lot of things to discuss. So, and then I think we're gonna do a I think it might be worth like the end of the season or approaching the playoffs doing the tier maker for the tracks, from a couple things, and getting everybody's unique perspectives, and
Yeah. Well, we should definitely, like, once we get down towards the end of the season, ranking the tracks just feels like a must. I
Right.
think that would be
right.
I think that would be fun to do. I think we can rank how the tracks run
Right.
this year. So
Right,
everybody who's
right.
listening, make sure you're tuning in as we get close, because we got some fun segments in store for you for sure.
Sick.
Yeah. So with that, I think that's going to wrap us up for this week. Please make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio under the name Intentional Wreck. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. You can find a link to our mailbag in the show description. Please submit some questions and we'll answer. We were going a little bit short this week, so we didn't touch the mailbag, but please submit your questions. We'll be happy to answer, and put yourself on the show. You can find us on Twitter at intwreckpod. That's at INTWRECKPOD. Find us, follow us, tell your friends, and talk racing with us whenever you'd like. And have some fun on Sunday.
We are